This video is sponsored by PCBWay. Hey there, this is Seth Schaefer from Team Just Cause Robotics, and in today's video we are going to talk about how my robot SSP performed at the Norwalk Havoc January New Bots event in 2023. Keep in mind, however, this is now a kit that's available for sale on my website, so you can scan this QR code or go to the link in the description and you can buy an SSP for yourself if you like how it performed at this event. So I had a lot riding on this bot's performance here, obviously. I was super nervous going into my first fight of the event that something stupid would go wrong and it would like randomly catch fire or any of a number of things that you never really know what's going to happen when you get into the box. But thankfully, I think SSP performed pretty much above any of my expectations, considering I was entering a really competitive field of bots with dangerous spinning weapons, and this is the first control bot that I've ever entered in the 3-pound weight class that has no way to really deal damage. I'm pretty happy with how it did, but I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, so you'll just have to watch the event report and see how things went. Now, my YouTube channel has been growing quite a bit lately, and I know that with the launch of this kit, there are probably a lot of people who maybe just found out that combat robotics even exists at the smaller weight classes, and found out that this kit exists and wanted to watch this video to see if they should get into the sport with a kit or building their own bot or anything like that, and maybe aren't familiar with me or my channel at all. So for those people, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit first. Like I said, my name is Seth Schaefer. I currently work as a mechanical engineer for my day job, and I also run the business Just Cause Robotics LLC as a side hustle where I produce combat robotics videos and combat robotics parts and sell them to the greater combat robotics community to help make it easier for new people to get into this wonderful sport that I love so much and that I think many others can love as well. Most people are probably most familiar, in the United States at least, from BattleBots. I'm also known for competing on the TV show BattleBots alongside the robot Bloodsport, and I've been competing on the show for the last 3 seasons, so I've got quite a bit of experience in this realm, and I wanted to share that with you guys by making this SSP kit that anybody can buy. Now, I want to talk about what the NHRL event actually is and what the format is, but if you already know that or you don't care and you just want to see the fights, feel free to skip ahead. I'll have timestamps down below, so you'll be able to skip right to the fights if that's what you want. This NHRL tournament was one of the largest that they've ever had. There were more than 100 beetle weights entered, and beetle weight is the 3-pound class name, by the way, so I was competing with up to 100 other robots to win a golden dumpster and a $1,000 cash prize. Now, they changed the event format for this event, and it was different from how NHRL has done events in the past. Most small bot tournaments have always run a double elimination format, which essentially just means that you fight until you've lost 2 fights, and then you're eliminated. So you fight and you lose once, you get knocked into an elimination bracket, then you fight again, you lose a second time, and you're completely eliminated. The way that they changed it this year was to try and limit the number of total fights at the tournament. So when you have a double elimination format, if there are 100 robots fighting, the total number of fights that has to happen is 198 or 199 fights, depending on whether the robot that wins the first final has been defeated before or not. With a single elimination format, it's just basically cut in half, and every robot fights until they lose once, and then they're gone. But Norwalk didn't want to have it so that you only get one chance to lose, because anything can go wrong in your first fight, and it really sucks for that to completely annihilate you from the tournament. So instead, they did a preliminary round where whether you win or lose, you then, from the result of your preliminary fight, get seeded into the main tournament first round, and from there it continues as single elimination. So if you win your first fight, you in theory get an easier opponent for the actual tournament, but if you lose that first preliminary fight, you still get to go on, but if you lose again at any point, you are eliminated from the tournament from that point forward. My very first fight of the event was going to be against another control lifter bot. This one was called Slamson 2 Chicken 2 Huffin, and it was built by BattleBots Slammo builder and driver Craig Danby. Now, Craig Danby has been in this sport for like 20 years, and he had competed at Norwalk in the past with a previous version of this robot called Chicken Huffin. I didn't really have much to go off of from what to expect from this bot other than a picture that was posted in the Norwalk Havoc Discord, so I was basically just hoping that I'd be able to outdrive him, since with a control versus control battle, that's pretty much all it usually comes down to. So let's see how this first fight went.
All right, so that
Robots fight.
we're now over into 6. Shameless self-promotion.
Oh, we need a smaller font for this fight.
Yeah, I think so. Slamson 2 Chicken Shuffin? I can't even say that. 2 Chicken 2 Huffin?
2 Chicken 2 Huffin.
I love it. I love it. Why not? Wow, aggressive.
Good shot of the cleats there.
Cleats, so important, such a great innovation here at NHRL as far as these wooden floors go. Now you see them in competitions all over on the East Coast, where wooden floors are common.
They're the magnets of the East Coast.
Yes, that's exactly right. In fact, we're invented because West Coaster builders would come here and not know what to do without magnets.
And so sometimes folks will call them wood magnets?
Yep, and that was like Calvin Ebo was one of the first guys to do it. Look at this lift, shameless self-promotion. Beautiful lifter bot, Seth Schaefer.
Oh, a little bit of taunting
you
there.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it. So Seth Schaefer, he's here all the time. I mean, he's with Just Cause Robotics, works on Team Bloodsport and Team Retrograde. Normally does these giant, powerful weapons with Division, and now this is his a lifter bot offering in the 3-pound division. This bot's aggressive. It's fast. I'm really impressed.
Some Crash Fest vibes.
Very Crash Festy, yeah.
The winner of the last new bot event for the 3-pound class.
Seth is a really good driver. I don't think he often builds bots that showcase that. He builds bots that stretch his driving abilities, right? Trying to control a bot like Division with where 2/3 of the mass of the bot, or the size of the bot, is literally that spinning weapon.
Right.
Very difficult to drive. This is a driving machine. There's a nice shot of the cleats there again on 2
Chicken
2 Chicken 2 Huffin.
But that's a subtitle for Slamson.
Yeah, subtitle for Slamson. I don't know. Why do people name their bots these things? They want us to
There's only so many names.
There's only so many names.
It's bad practice to take a name from a robot that's already competed.
Maybe it's to help them break the tension during the fight. They get to hear us just stumble over this nonsense, and then they're able to kind of giggle at us and relax a little bit more. They are moving now. Okay, it looked like Slamson was not moving there at all, but they are back at it.
And a bit of slowdown on shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, what's going on? There we go. A little bit of movement back there. And we are back at the door. So this one will go to the judges. So that's phenomenal. All right, so we're going to get the decision from the Titanium stream. And it does look like Seth Schaefer shameless self-promotion is going to be your winner from that by unanimous decision. That is a bot to watch today.
Yeah, it brought the heat.
It brought the heat. Seth put a lot of work into that bot, and this is, like I said, this is a bot that really showcases Seth's driving abilities.
And his store.
Yeah, and his store.
All right, now I'm going to provide my commentary while we watch my handheld camera angle for this fight. I'm sorry I forgot to bring my tripod to this event, unfortunately. So I put a clock in the top right corner, which counts down in real time. You'll notice something weird at the end, but we'll get to that later. So this is the first time I've ever driven SSP in an actual arena. It handles a bit differently than it does on my vinyl apartment flooring, so I was still kind of getting a feel for the controls and exactly how fast it would turn, how fast it would accelerate and everything. Going into this fight, because it was my first fight, I was incredibly nervous. Like, I kind of almost felt like I was going to throw up because I had just posted the video announcing that this robot is a kit at 7 a.m. the morning of the competition, which meant that if it did horribly, I would be embarrassing myself and no one would buy it, and I would be out tons of money that I spent developing these things. So that was creating a huge pit in my stomach. I was really glad to find out that my first opponent was going to be a control bot, because it meant at least there was a smaller likelihood of my robot ending the fight as a pile of rubble. But of course there's always a chance of things going wrong and a bot like catching fire or something stupid in its first ever fight when it's never been battle tested. So I definitely found early on in this fight that the bot was super maneuverable, super easy to drive. It drives so much better than any of the other bots that I've built. And I was really, really happy being able to just drive it around with such a zippy, controllable frame. And the four-wheel drive system makes it so easy to go perfectly straight when you want to compared to the two-wheel drive bots that I'm used to. So pretty early on it became apparent that Slamson's arm wasn't working. They use a brushless geared system for their arm, and Craig said after the fight that he had a loose solder joint on the speed controller that was making the arm super intermittent. So every time he got flipped upside down, he couldn't really self-right. Unfortunately for me, though, for whatever reason, the referee refused to actually count him out. So I was waiting for there to be a count out, and there never was one. Usually after 20 seconds, the bot gets counted out, even if the house bot's trying to free them, as you see here. But for whatever reason, that didn't happen. This wasn't a big deal for this fight, because it was pretty clear I was going to win. But in future fights, my idea was, if I'm going to fight a spinner bot that would otherwise just be hitting me for 3 minutes, I'd love to be able to prop them up against the wall, make them use their one unstick, and then if they get stuck again, they should get counted out and I should be awarded the win as a knockout, which is a much easier path to victory than surviving getting hit for 3 minutes. So with the referees refusing to actually count out a robot that's immobilized for more than 30 straight seconds, I was getting pretty nervous about future spinner fights that I'd have to deal with. But at least in this case, I ended up coming away with a unanimous judge's decision because Slamson was having horrible traction with their spiky wheels. I think they had too many spikes in contact with the floor at once, weren't really getting traction, and they weren't even able to flip themselves back over every time I flipped them upside down. Alright, so this is Craig Danby, builder and driver of Slamson 2 Chicken 2 Muffin.
Yeah.
Do you have a story behind the name?
So we were at BattleBots in 2020, and we were driving around one evening, and we saw a pile of paint cans, spray paint cans, and some KFC buckets. And clearly some kids have been painting, but someone's like, "Oh look, someone's been huffing chicken." And I was like, "Chicken huffing's a great name for a robot." And I wanted it to be a little Slamo, so Slamson, and it's the second chicken huffing, so 2 chicken, 2 huffing.
I see.
So the next one will be Slamson 2, the chicken, the huffing.
Nice.
So that's the little main story for it.
Cool.
So obviously in the fight, it was like it was on ice. It just really wasn't going as well as I wanted it to. I thought spiked wheels. So when we did Robot Wars back in the day, the Robot Wars arena was made of wood. So we got rid of our big rubber wheels and put on basically sprockets to drive, and that was great. Gave us plenty of grip. The difference being that there's so many teeth. What I think was happening is it's just skipping over the surface. We're just not getting enough bite. So probably nothing I can do about it here. Probably a redesign on those wheels. But you know, they kind of work. Brett has made one wheel a little wobbly because he stuck me in the wall. But yeah, so no grip. And outdriven by a better driver. Pretty simple.
Appreciate it.
No problem.
I thought that I was not going to be good at driving a control bot because I haven't really tried it before, but it worked out.
control bots are a lot of fun, but when they work properly, so no grip, I couldn't position myself to get you, and I had a dry joint on my speed controller for the weapon, so I was getting intermittent control. So I've resoldered it, and now it's way better. But yeah, it's all, I made everything, made the gearboxes, and what I should do is just give up and put a giant servo in, so, like you did.
Mine's not even that giant, but I have a slightly shorter arm throw than you.
Yeah. It's okay. It's been a labor of love. She's a little wonky. She's got beans.
Cute. I like it.
But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's a great fight.
No problem, man.
So that first fight went pretty well for me, and I was ecstatic that SSP didn't blow up or anything catastrophically failing. I now had to face yet another incredibly talented driver in Evan Arias. Now, the robot I was fighting is called Basado, and it is pretty interesting because it is actually also a kit robot, sort of. This robot was designed and built not by Evan, but by Peter Garnache. Now, this is based on his robot called Ablation, which is a four-wheel drive vertical spinner, but he said he basically changed the entire design to make it mass manufacturable to make a kit. He built 7 of these, gave them to random drivers the day of this event who had never seen them before. So even though Evan Arias is an incredibly talented driver, he was given a robot that is extremely different from the Shred-It Bro 3-pound bot that he's used to. And he was forced to basically figure things out on the day of the event. I figured I had a pretty good shot at this fight, but I was nervous because in that last fight I found out the referees refused to actually count out a knockout. If that wasn't a viable strategy, I'd be forced to take several hits throughout the match and just try and control the pace of the match the best that I could. That meant pinning, making sure that I was showing I had control by actively pinning the robot to the wall, and if I could flip them over and push them around the arena, I would do that too, but making sure I just maintained control and aggression, since I couldn't necessarily do damage, was really the key to winning this fight. So let's see how it went.
Looking over at Cage
yes.
5 here. We've got Shameless Self-Promotion. Ooh, I love that name.
Basado. Yeah, so Shameless Self-Promotion is another lifter
went
bot.
right for it. No hesitation here at the start.
So Seth Schaefer runs a combat robotics store online. You can check it out. It's a very cool store.
Shameless Self-Promotion?
And so this bot is made with parts from his store. Hence the name.
There we go.
Shameless Self-Promotion. These are actually both promotional bots in a lot of ways, because Basado is a kit bot, one of the Peter Bar bots, which Peter Garnache built and kind of distributed to a bunch of builders here today. This one in particular went to Professor Evan Arias, who is arguably the most aggressive driver in the sport. He is a phenomenal driver. It is interesting to see him with kind of a slower, more methodical bot, having to change his strategy and change his style. And now seeing Seth Schaefer with a very low-to-the-ground controllable bot. He's a phenomenal driver, but he normally gives himself very difficult bots to drive and control.
Wow.
This is him with a very maneuverable, very controllable bot, very able to showcase those driving skills a little bit more than he normally gets to.
Shameless Self-Promotion really is a solid brick of a robot here.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see it's designed to take all kinds of abuse and really keep it going.
It's underneath Basado now. It's not even getting hit by that weapon. He is taking full advantage of the pin rule, able to pin against the wall for those 10 seconds. He's using that lifter very effectively to keep the opponent up and out of the way of him. And look at this, nice pin on the side of Basado. Really just showing off his maneuverability.
He has him totally locked.
Oh yeah.
See, it's the lifting effect I'm learning can really help you.
It is so rare to see it done well, and we've seen it done well so many times today. Now, to give you some context, Seth Schaefer normally drives a bot here called Division in the 3-pound weight class. It has a huge weapon on it, massive vertical spinner, incredibly hard to drive, just chaos. So seeing him drive this controlled bot in such an aggressive manner is so impressive. It just shows a whole skill set you didn't know Seth had.
That sound doesn't necessarily...
No, that is the weapon
like
of Basado grinding away against the floor of the box. All that energy getting wasted on the floor of the box.
Oh, it's so tough.
Yeah, it's bad on the motors, it's bad on the belts, it's bad on the blades. You want every one of those impacts going into your opponent. You do not want that going into the floor of the box.
Well, with these two bots, you know, they seem to have a similar shape, right? A similar design,
Sure.
and one I feel like clearly has so much more power than the other.
As
and
far
it
as
goes,
the drive side goes,
right?
yeah.
And it goes to show how much detail goes into that drive, and how much of a difference maker that can really be in the moments that matter.
Well, and you can put a little bit more weight and a little bit more energy into the drive when you just have a lifter. You're not spending so much power spinning a weapon the entire time.
He really full control on this one
Full
the
control.
entire time.
Full control. And normally you would not, like if you heard Evan Arias is going to be facing off against Seth Schaefer, you would not think Seth Schaefer was going to be the aggressive one in that fight. You would not think he would be the one that would control that entire fight. But the machine you're using dictates so much of your strategy, and Seth is faster. He's more controllable in this fight. He did a phenomenal job. There you see Professor Evan Arias. He is the happy warrior every time we see him. Always full smiles, always
Can we get a glasses look again? Come on, show us the glasses. He's focused. He's
focused.
like, leave me alone.
And he's really impressed with Seth's work. Look, I mean, the happy warrior is the best way to describe. Yeah.
You're continuing the success alongside the friends that you've made here, and you want to see them compete and see them do well. You're seeing so much positivity. Looking at decisions here, this one.
Unsurprising.
Unanimous.
Same shameless self-promotion, 100% across the board wins that entire thing. Basato will be going home. The idea of the Kitbot is, hey, I'm new. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to buy this thing. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to learn all the things I want to improve, all the things I want to fix, and then I'm going to iterate on it. We have bots here like Red Hawk, which they started as a kit bot. Now, nothing on that bot resembles the kit that it was originally started as, because they've improved, they've changed, it's new motors, it's new everything. And that's kind of the idea of this. But
Alrighty, so this was definitely a much more exciting fight than the last one, because I think it was less of a clear domination win here, though of course I did still win the fight with a unanimous decision. So I made a couple really big driving errors in this fight. The first one was I kept trying to lift the lifter into his weapon. I was thinking that I would get it in between the two blades, but like you can see here, that didn't exactly work out. And here I didn't realize until those hits that my arm had been damaged, and I'll show exactly what happened later, but basically from this point forward the servo could like basically move with no torque. So here I'm steering upside down, which is why I drove into the wall there, and I'm trying to figure out how to maneuver when I'm basically driving with the steering reversed because the bot's upside down. So eventually I get another nice pin here. I noticed that he's down a drive side, so I'm just going to try and get some pins, and if I can figure out a way to flip myself over, then that would be what I'll do next. But getting pins here, you can see that there's a countdown from 10, because you're only allowed to pin for 10 seconds at a time, and then you have to release, and then I can engage in another pin. So I managed to flip myself back over here by driving into the weapon, and I can see that Basato's having a really hard time moving at this point. But every time I leave them alone for a while, it seems like they still aren't getting counted out, so I just have to keep going back for more pins and more pushes to try and demonstrate more control and aggression, because at this point, I mean, he's down a drive side, but my lifter isn't quite working, so we both suffered some damage. So you can hear some terrible noises coming from Basato at this point. It sounds like their weapon is starting to rub against their frame somewhere. I can't quite see how that's happening, but I could easily hear it from where I was in my driving position. So because they still weren't being counted out, even though they were immobile for like 30 plus seconds before, I'm just going to keep going in for more and more pins and trying to run out the clock. And here I accidentally back up a little bit too hard into the wall. And you can see that because my robot's wheels stick out the back, I was able to drive myself up the wall, but then the weight of Basato on my forks pinned me there. So now when Basato's free, I'm able to drive myself off. And I'll just go in for another pin, and that's pretty much the end of the fight at this point.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's that.
It's like, oh,
Oh, wait,
Oh, you're good.
so there was like a wood chip that was stuck, and as soon as like we played with it a little bit, bang, and also we noticed that the screw kind of like backed out here as well. It was like a little bit of a nightmare, but yeah, it locked up, and you did a great job, man.
Thank you.
Those pins were legendary. I gave you credit.
My arm broke immediately, so I was like, what else can I do at this point, you know? But,
Yeah, man.
I mean, yeah, I did what I had to do at that point. I almost got stuck on the wall.
Oh man, when
I was like, no.
I felt bad because usually when someone's stuck on the wall, I try to get them off, and then when I saw you stuck, like I can't even help you.
Yeah.
Like I need the breath.
This is after fighting Evan Arias with Basato. I definitely took a few direct hits, so the chassis held up beautifully. But unfortunately, my servo arm died. It seems like maybe the gearbox stripped out or something when he hit it upwards to backdrive it, which, I mean, I guess that's gonna happen. It's like freewheeling. So I'll have to swap out the servo, but hopefully that's all I have to fix. Oh wow, it rounded out the aluminum sprocket teeth. The servo might actually be fine. This is the same servo I just fought with, but a different arm. Let's see if it works. No. I plugged it in backwards. Hey, it's alive.
So that fight with Basato turned out to be a much easier win than I had anticipated, considering it's an Apex design, meta design with a four-wheel drive vertical spinner, since it was so slow and it was having some mechanical drivetrain issues, as Evan Arias explained. It seemed like a lot of the kits that Peter had brought to this event had similar issues like that throughout their fights. Next, I had to fight 3-for-3, yet another BattleBots competitor, this time from the Hijinks BattleBots team. I was fighting against two members of the Hijinks team with a vicious undercutter in Offbeat. Offbeat is actually the name of the Hijinks BattleBots team, their team Offbeat Robotics, so the robot name being Offbeat is a reference to that. Now, Offbeat was interesting because it took advantage of the multi-bot weight rule at Norwalk, so you could have 4 pounds if you have 2 robots. So their main robot with the undercutter was 3 pounds, and then they had an additional 1 pound mini-bot that was this long stick-like thing with fast brushless drive they were going to try to use to trip me up and stop me from box rushing them. So basically, my strategy here was the same as against Basato, but I changed up my configuration to a wedge so that I could take hits from a horizontal and have them glance off of me, rather than having them rip off the forks on the front of my bot. I had to get in there hard and fast, stop the spinner, try and break the spinner, try and break their drive, try and get them stuck if I couldn't do that, and just control the pace of the fight the best I could. Let's see how this one went.
Get it? They look real. You just want to squish them. I get it. I totally understand. But it's a beautiful bot. It kind of looks like a Nickelodeon product from like the 90s.
It
Nickelodeon.
does, which I think is why I'm so drawn to it. It's 100% something you would see on a Cartoon Network commercial.
Like a secondary weapon should be a slime of some sort.
Yeah. Let's see what Super Soaker would make if they had a Norwalk competitor.
So we have Offbeat facing off against Shameless Self-Promotion, a Seth Schaefer robot. By the way, Seth is really into the alliterative.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, if you somehow decide to design 1.5 million robots.
Yes.
Somehow decide that you want to bring them to Norwalk and compete time after time again, and you still have gas in the tank, why not throw it into creative names?
Gotta love it. And this one is a promotion for Seth's Combat Robotics store, where he sells combat robotics parts and solutions. He also has one of the best and most informative YouTube channels as far as combat robotics for beginners, and really great resource for the community there.
Not to interject, Kyle, but I saw a what I believe is a weapon belt go flying in that last exchange. I think that might be the end of that horizontal spinner.
On Offbeat. And is it me, or is the lifter stuck in the up position on Shameless Self-Promotion?
It is, but it is still moving, Kyle. So despite the fact that the robot might not be able to lift properly, it can at least wiggle-waggle. And It doesn't seem like it, but that could be all the difference, you know, later in the match. Oh, it's almost all the way down.
There we go. Nice lift there. Beautiful. Yeah, it seems like their weapon's back in full position.
Sometimes
doing what
you
it's
just
supposed to do.
get a bit of schmoo. You get something in there, and it gets locked up, and all it takes is a little percussive maintenance.
Yeah, in this arena, it might be some sawdust. It might be some aluminum. It might be, who knows?
Yeah, at home we call that schmerble sometimes.
Schmerble.
Yeah, just a
delicious.
bit of schmerble in there.
Yeah, that sounds like a great topping I want on my pizza.
It does. I feel like maybe I went to a Greek restaurant and I ordered my pita with a little extra schmerble. So here we go. We're going to see that lift is being attempted, but when your competitor is lodged in a wall like that, it's kind of hard to lift them.
Yeah, you don't really have a lot of leverage going in the right direction for you there.
3-bot pileup is resolved.
One thing that I've been just so impressed with today is
There's your little wiggly wobbly lift.
Seth's driving capabilities with this bot. Normally we see Seth with these giant vertical spinners. He's not really able to showcase what an excellent driver he is.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to him this morning. I said, how you feeling about this bot? How's it driving? He's like, well, I don't have anything to hit him with, so I don't really know what I'm going to do. It's a complete change of pace for him, and I think he's doing incredibly well considering.
He really is. All right, so that's the end of this match. These bots end in a loving embrace and heading to the door. So this will go to the judges.
Yeah, I'm eager to see how that goes.
This fight got very interesting very fast. So first off, as you'll probably imagine, I ran into the same exact problem as I ran into in the Basato fight with the aluminum servo spline T. It's stripping out, so I could still move the arm, it just had like no torque behind it. But in this configuration, I did not actually intend for the arm to really be a lifter. I intended for it to be more of a grabber, and I actually mentioned this in the Norwalk Discord, and I asked Gil, who's one of the people who helps run the event, hey, how do I communicate to the judges that I'm not actually going to be using my weapon as a lifting weapon anymore in my anti-horizontal configuration? And he basically said, yeah, just make sure that the judges know that. So I maybe should have done that better, but I thought that by just continuing to kind of control the pace of the fight, driving into the weapon, trying to stop that weapon somehow, and doing whatever I could, that I might be able to win anyway. And you can see here I actually did succeed in doing that, because I actually, by causing their weapon to stall a bunch of times, from the friction that was generated from it spinning up over and over, they actually melted their weapon pulley, so that's why that belt went flying off. And you can also see a little bit further into the fight that their drive started to give out on one side as well on the main bot. Now, one of the other weird things about this fight is because there's a mini bot in play, I wasn't really sure how that plays into control and aggression points, because you can see here like the mini bot's kind of pinning me, but pretty much the rest of the fight, like I'm able to control the main bot pretty effectively, and I kind of just pretended the mini-bot wasn't there, or got it the hell out of my way to the best that I could. For the most part, I was just focused on the main bot, trying to slam it into the walls, trying to get those pins, trying to immobilize it, trying to show that I was completely in control. And while I think that I probably demonstrated much better control overall than the main bot, the fact that the mini-bot's sometimes doing stuff like this, where it's like behind me, I think could potentially have swayed the judges a little bit against me. And I also think that in general, not having my lifting arm doing lifting, they may have thought that it was like properly broken, even though it could still move. I just didn't really have a reason to be lifting it up and down. Like, it wasn't really going to do anything for me. So I'm mainly just focused on getting pins like this and just demonstrating that I have control over the pace of the fight. So here you can see 30 seconds left. Clearly the main bot is down a drive side, and they're no longer able to drive in a straight line without me just pushing them. We got 10 seconds left in the fight, and again, I'm just going to try and do what I can to push them around. And that's what I did. And somehow they both got stuck on me.
After the offbeat fight, the lid looks a little worse for wear. The rest of the bot's fine though, except again, I rounded out the servo gear, it looks like. But I didn't really get hit anywhere I didn't want to, so that's good. I directed the hits pretty well to my wedge, and hopefully came out on top. I haven't actually seen the judge's decision result yet. Battery's you know, again, about half charge after the fight, so plenty of battery life. Alright, the servo was not unscathed this time. You can see that some of the plastic casing broke off, but it does still work. And you definitely can see that it rounded out the pinion teeth again. So, same failure mode, except a little bit worse for the servo, because horizontals on this arm, that's going to happen. They also bent this screw a tiny bit, so I'll have to replace that. This is the shoulder bolt that was supporting the weapon for the servo lifter. You can see it's a little bent on the end there. It's not terrible, though. Alright, you want to introduce yourself and your robot?
So, this is Offbeat. I'm Kaz. This is Offbeat. And we had Price over there running our little mini bot.
Hi! Price.
During that last fight, I noticed at one point when he had us pinned against the wall, the pinion gears here. So we have the motor drives the gear directly meshing with the teeth there on the wheels.
Yep.
This one had slid in, so it wasn't meshing well. But this one over here, the set screw had come loose.
No.
And it was only intermittently gripping, and that's why during the fight we lost one side of our drive. This pulley, I probably should have replaced it before that fight. It got pretty hot pretty fast.
Seems like.
And that caused the belt to just slip off.
Wow.
But other than that, a little scratch paint here and there, we should be good to go. Tighten that nut up, we'll be good.
Great fight. I still have no idea who won.
We figured out a handshake and fist
Yeah,
bump.
I know, it's annoying. COVID sucks, man.
So, let me know in the comments if you thought that I deserved to win that fight. But I'll let you know what actually happened. Essentially, after that fight, I and the drivers of the Offbeat team both were like, wow, that was like the hardest driving I've ever had to do in a combat robot fight. It was one of the best fights I've ever had. It was so difficult, it was super close, and neither of us knew who won. For whatever reason, they didn't announce the result of that judge's decision on the stream at all. So we were looking at the bracket, refreshing the page, and it showed up that Shameless Self-Promotion had won the fight. So I was like, heck yeah, that's incredible. But a few minutes later, it changed to Offbeat winning the fight. Now, there was a Google Doc that was like a Google Sheet that had all of the judges' scoring results. So we went over to the Offbeat team, and together we looked at that spreadsheet, and it showed that the judges had scored the fight 8-9, 8-9, and 11-6. And those two 8-9 decisions were in favor of Offbeat, and the one 11-6 decision was in favor of SSP. Now, all of the judges awarded the majority of the damage points to me because I had broken their drive and weapon, but for whatever reason, it was contested that I controlled and that I was more aggressive, even though at least I felt that I had pretty clearly dominated in at least one of those categories. And apparently most of the Norwalk Havoc community did as well. But I was willing to accept the result, even though it meant I was eliminated from the tournament, because it was a close fight. And I mean, there's only 3 people making this decision, and you know, one of them disagreed, the other 2 went the other way. It was difficult to decide, I guess, in the heat of the moment. And I think that they had 3 separate panels of judges for this event or something, so the judges weren't necessarily people who had been judging past NHRL events. Maybe they had different takes on how matches would be scored than some of the previous judges. I'm not really sure. In the end, though, unfortunately, SSP was eliminated from the tournament, and Offbeat moved on and eventually took 4th place overall in the tournament, qualifying for the December finals. So I did, however, manage to get one 4th fight in with SSP, this time against a fingertech beater bar bot. This robot was called Sadiq, and it was built by my older brother's high school robotics team. So he's coaching a high school team in New York City, and they built this robot in the couple months leading up to the event. It was high schoolers all the way doing the design and the construction of the robot. And this was the first time that Sadiq had ever fought at any event, even though they had competed with a different robot in the past at Norwalk. So they had some combat experience, but not a lot, and they're high schoolers. So I also wanted to find out how SSP handled beater bars, since they're a pretty common weapon type at Norwalk. And for anyone who's looking to purchase the kit, I'm sure that anybody wants to know how it does against a fingertech beater bar. So I basically treated this fight a little bit more loosey-goosey than usual. I was still trying to win, but I was willing to drive into their weapon a few times, probably more than I needed to, and try and see how durable my robot was. For this fight, this is the only one where I switched to my second spare frame. So the first 2 fights I fought with this frame with the stickers on the side, and then the first 3 fights. For this last fight, I had switched to this one. This was like my spare robot frame, the only difference being that there were no stickers on the side. That's the only way you can tell the difference. And so all of the damage on this frame was just from Sadiq, and you can see it is a little bit beat up. So let's see how that happened.
Oh my God, man!
Yeah, it was just one wheel, which can be fixed right now.
All right. You want to introduce yourself and your robot?
I'm Lakridge, and this is my group right here. Sadiq. Yeah. Sadiq is the name of the robot.
All right.
And yeah, I think it held pretty good for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, that did really well against B. I took way more damage than I thought I was going to. Forks came out. Got
I think
a few
probably
good licks on the
because
chassis.
this was plastic.
Almost broke the fork off too.
Get all your stuff.
Definitely a few good hits on here.
This is actually a really great robot. The way you picked it up.
So yeah, wow. Sadiq did a lot better than I thought they would. Honestly, gave me a bit of a run for my money there. But at the end, they had a battery door on the bottom of their robot that was held on with like 4 screws. Some of those screws loosened up, the battery door dropped down, and it high centered them so their wheels were no longer touching the floor. And so they eventually got counted out, and I was awarded the win by knockout. First time for everything, I guess. So yeah, it was overall, I'm really happy with how SSP did. It far exceeded my expectations for what a control bot could do against a bunch of vicious spinner robots. I mean, you can argue whether I even lost a fight, but, you know, still, going 3-1 is pretty respectable at such a high level of competition that Norwalk Havoc always brings. And I think that a lot of people will hopefully be very happy with their own SSP kit in the future. I will address, obviously I had a failure with the servo arm. Don't worry about the servo arm failing because I've already found a solution for that. I found some steel servo arms that shouldn't have the same problem of the teeth stripping that the aluminum ones do. I was able to hit a bunch of them with a hammer. I stripped the aluminum ones and the steel ones held perfectly fine. So I don't think that'll be an issue. Got a few more tweaks to try and make it so that the forks hold on a bit better so I don't have the same problem that we saw against Sadiq with the forks flying off. And just nailing down a few final details like what the packaging looks like and buying all of the chassis and everything else. But don't expect it to be drastically different, except just a little bit better than what you saw fighting today. So let me know in the comments, what did you think about SSP and how it performed? Would you be interested in buying an SSP kit? Do you think that someone else you know would love one? Definitely let me know in the comments or send them a link to the store page if you think they'd really be interested. I'd very much appreciate it because all of the money that's spent on those kits is money that I just reinvest back into my business to make even more and better products for the Combat Robotics community. And of course, investing more of my time into making videos like this one to entertain all of you. So make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, thanks for watching. As always, I'd like to thank this video's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay is an amazing fabrication service that does CNC machining, 3D printing, and of course PCB fabrication and assembly. I've gotten plenty of PCBs fabricated from them. Their instant quoting tool is fantastic. You can usually get your first 5 boards for as little as $5 plus shipping. So make sure to check the link in the description for a referral link so you'll get $5 off of your first order, and go to PCBWay.com for all of your CNC fabrication needs.